The majority of the basketball world is probably all wrapped up in the excitement of March Madness right now, but the NBA season is also approaching its end. There are 3 weeks left in the regular season before the real fun begins, and with most of the playoffs and play-in spots looking to be set in stone, there are definitely a few teams that need this remaining period to snap out of the funk that they find themselves in, which brings us to today's video. Today we'll be discussing 4 teams that for the most of the year have been establishing themselves as real contenders, but have been trending in the wrong direction lately and would be screwed if the playoffs began today. These teams have the talent to make real noise, but they won't do so if their current form continues. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first contender that would be screwed if the playoffs began today and need to use these last few weeks to get back on track is the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers season has been a roller coaster from the very first game of the year. Things began with them trading for James Harden, which was immediately followed with a 6-game losing streak and panic setting in from very early on. They then settled in and the chemistry started to click, and with their new look group, that came with them looking like world beaters in the months of December and January, where they flew up the standings, destroying everything in their path, and in early February, they got up as high as 2nd place in the Western Conference standings, looking like a group that could be coming for the 1 seed. Since then, though, the Clippers have almost completely fallen off a cliff and have been playing some pretty uninspiring basketball since the beginning of February. They've won just 3 of their last 10 games. Over the last month and a half, they've lost pretty much every important head-to-head matchup with other contenders, including losses to the Timberwolves, the Bucks twice, the Lakers, the Thunder, the 76ers without Joel Embiid, and the Pelicans twice, who, by the way, have now caught the Clippers in the standings and are just half a game behind them. The Pelicans are red hot and the Clippers are ice cold, so it wouldn't be surprising at all if the Pelicans do steal that 4 seed and push the Clippers out of having home court advantage in the first round. You could of course point to Russell Westbrook being out due to injury as a big loss for them causing this, but the real concerns for them come on the defensive side of the ball. The Clippers have been ranked in the bottom 5 of the NBA defensively since the beginning of February, despite having good individual defensive talent like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, but the lackluster effort on that end from guys like James Harden, Norman Powell, and Ivica Zubac, along with having no real rim protection inside, makes this a real cause for concern. This was a team that a few months ago, people were thinking could breeze through the early rounds of the playoffs, and now it's questionable whether they'll even be able to beat the Pelicans in the first round, so they desperately need to get back on track in the next few weeks. The next contender that would be screwed if the playoffs were starting today and need to use these last few weeks to get back on track is the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavaliers may not be as flashy and star-studded as the Clippers, but in many ways they've been the Clippers of the East this year, following an eerily similar trajectory. Their season started off slowly. As they got healthier and comfortable playing together, they started to go on a tear, looking like world beaters in the middle of the season. Then the injury bug continually struck and cooled them off. The Cavaliers have been dealing with injuries for a lot of the season, but Donovan Mitchell was able to keep them afloat through it all, getting some MVP shouts at one point for the work that he was doing, only for him to then get a whack to the nose that needed surgery, and he's been out for the last week with no set return yet, although an update is expected to arrive in the coming days. After the Cavaliers had surpassed the Bucks in the standings to get to 2nd place in the East, which is a place in the standings that they held as recently as 2 weeks ago, they've since lost all that steam and also have won just 3 of their last 10 games. Evan Mobley has been in and out of the lineup all year due to various injuries. The same can be said about Darius Garland. Donovan Mitchell is now a concerning question mark, and even guys like Max Strus and Dean Wade are less than 100% at the moment too. The Cavaliers' success stems from their defensive dominance. dominance, but it's hard to be a dominant defense without cohesion and chemistry. The clock is ticking for them to get all of their best players back on the floor in time to get back on track, because if they flame out from the playoffs early again like they did last year, we may see a guy like Donovan Mitchell force his hand in the offseason. The Cavaliers are still sitting in third place in the East, but the Knicks are just a half a game behind them in the standings, and the Magic are actually a surprise group just one game behind them in the standings. So unless the Cavaliers pull it together, they too could lose out on home court advantage in the first round. The next contender that would be screwed if the playoffs were starting today is the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are on this list for a very obvious reason that doesn't need much of a deep dive. It's because Joel Embiid is still out recovering from his knee procedure. Joel was playing the best basketball of his career this season prior to going down, and looked like he was on track to win his second consecutive MVP award, but literally everything changed after he hurt his knee. The Sixers were sitting in third place in the East when he went down, and some of Embiid's best games of the year had come against contenders like the Timberwolves, Thunder, and Nuggets, so with a Tyrese Maxey leap, a more balanced rotation with role players that fit his playstyle, and an upgraded head coach with Nick Nurse, things were looking up in Philadelphia, but now they're at risk of everything going down the drain and it all being for nothing. The Sixers have fallen from third place to 8th place in the East, seeming like a lock for the play-in tournament at this point, and even though there are some rumblings that Joel Embiid could return to the court before the regular season ends, that doesn't mean that he'll just be able to pick right back up where he left off. He will have not played a competitive basketball game in 2 months. It's highly unlikely he'll be in very good shape because he's been forced to rest his knee for so long, and a rusty Joel Embiid is not necessarily enough to get this team back on track. If he's available for the play-in tournament, then they should definitely make it out, but then they have a matchup with either the Boston Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks waiting for them in the first round of the playoffs, and without Embiid at 100% health, they don't stand a chance despite looking like a group that could compete with those squads earlier in the year. And finally, the last playoff contender that would be screwed if the playoffs were starting today and need to use these last few weeks to get back on track is the New York Knicks. The Knicks were one of the most aggressive teams to go all in this year, and then when they brought in OG Anunoby via trade, it looked like it was taking them to another level. Jalen Brunson is playing the best basketball of his life, Julius Randle was once again playing at an all-star level, OG Anunoby was proving to be the perfect connecting piece in their lineup, setting the tone on defense and complementing the team's stars as a floor-spacing secondary scorer. Dante DiVincenzo has been one of the most effective volume shooters this year in his role and was a terrific pickup for them. Josh Hart is one of the most well-rounded role players in the league, and their depth has been stronger than ever. The Knicks were also storming up the standings midway through the season, but as soon as that began, the injury bug struck, and it's an issue that they still don't have clarity on even now. Julius Randle injured his shoulder at the end of January and still doesn't have a timetable to return to the court. OG Anunoby hurt his elbow around the same time and then re-aggravated it 3 games after he tried to return to the court, so he's now back to square one, and Mitchell Robinson is out for the season on top of it all. At full strength, the Knicks are easily in the same tier of contender as the Bucks and Cavaliers, but without Anunoby and Randle at 100% health, it's going to be a major uphill battle for Jalen Brunson to carry them as far as they want to go. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you think these teams can get back on track. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.